Jose Talk Sports. For this week's episodes, I'm just going to be talking about the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference finals that have been taking place this last week. First off, I'm going to start with Miami and Boston. The Boston Celtics are proving that the statement championships are won through defense. They're proving that to be true. The Boston Celtics, I think, have the best defense left in this playoffs. I do think that there's other teams that are capable, like Golden State, but Boston, by far, I think, has the best defense. You look at what they were able to accomplish against Miami in Game 4. It was a straight-up block party all night long. You had guys like Al Horford and Robert Williams both having 4 blocks of their own. Jason Tatum had 2. White had 1. But because of that, he also had 3 steals, just proving why their defense is elite and why it's able to limit Miami's offense by so much. You look at the way Miami opened up the game. They scored 4 points and allowed Boston to go on a 26-4 run. Right then and there, you could get a sense that the game was going to get out of hand. They finished the quarter with 11 points, allowing Boston to score 29. Now that's a recipe for disaster. With Miami, they've been battling injuries this whole playoffs. Jimmy Butler was at risk of not making this game, but he did. He did play this game. But then you had guys like Kyle Lowry, who has been missing multiple games. And it seemed like he missed this game because you look at the numbers. And I'll get to those in a moment. But I do think that Miami's overall slow start, it certainly didn't help them. Especially when you're facing a team like Boston, in Boston, you got to be able to get out of the box real hot. They didn't show that sense of urgency. They were playing catch up the entire game. They were down by as much as 29, I believe, or 30, something like that. And you look at the overall numbers. Miami scores 82 points, Boston 102. They win by 20. For field goals, Miami shot 33%, with Boston doing 40%. Now, that's not, spectacular numbers, but it is better than what Miami was producing. What I thought was interesting, though, was the three-point line. Boston had 8 3-pointers, and Miami had 14, nearly doubling the level of productivity that Boston was producing. One would think that, okay, if you're winning the three-point battle, you're going to get the lead, you're going to win the game. But you look at the free throws. The Miami Heat made 8 free throws, taking 14 trips to the line, versus the Boston Celtics, who made 32 out of 38. That's a 24 free throw swing. The fact that they were able to get to the line, they were able to be aggressive and draw the fouls and get to the free throw line only demonstrates the level of urgency and determination they had in winning this game, because they knew going down 3-1, it's insurmountable. The odds are not good. So for them to tie the series at 2-2, now it's just a best of 3. They go back to Miami. Whoever wins that game, I think, will end up winning the series, whether it's in 6 or whether it's in 7. I do think the winner of the next game, Game 5, will end up winning the series. One thing that was also interesting is you look at the starting lineup. The Miami Heat's starting lineup was just sad. Looking at again, the level of productivity and the numbers that they were producing, I mean, their starting lineup, 18 points. 18 points. Jimmy Butler, and I understand Jimmy Butler's hurt, and I'm not going to fault anybody who's playing hurt, because you wouldn't have to be playing. But the fact that he's playing and he's here for the team is huge. But Jimmy Butler, 6 points, 3 out of 14 from the field. Adebayo gives you 9 points. Their leading scorer was Victor Oladipo with 23 points coming off the bench. The other 3 members of their starting lineup, PJ Tucker, Strauss, Lowry, they combined for 3 points. No productivity. No result. 18 points from their starters. Their bench, 64 points. That doesn't make sense. It shouldn't have to be that way. How are your starters limited to 18 points? We were calling him Jimmy Playoffs all year, or all playoffs, I should say. 6 points isn't going to cut it. You look at their 18 points as the starters and compare that to Boston starters, who had 73 points. Hell, you look at Boston's bench, and they outscored Miami starters. Miami starters, again, had 18 points. The Boston bench had 29. It's clearly Miami struggles against this Boston defense, which I will keep saying I think they have the best defense. I did pick them to win this series. I just think they're overall the better team. This series has proven that Boston really has a sense of urgency. This is a team that has not been to the finals since 2008. They've made the conference finals in the last few years, but they kept running into LeBron. And then in 2020, they ran into Miami. And Miami ended up winning, and they would go to the finals. However, they would lose. But nonetheless, Boston realizes this may be their best chance. They're clearly the better team. They're better equipped. I wouldn't say they're better coached. I do believe Spoelstra is a great coach, but at the moment, and on all cylinders, these guys are firing. I do think that sense of urgency is starting to come through because of those struggles that they've experienced in the past. And without those struggles and those losses, maybe they would not be here, because the more losses you obtain, the more meaning there is with a win. And I truly believe that Boston's going to be in the finals this year, regardless of whether it's in Game 6 or it's in Game 7. I do pick them to win. Another detail I wanted to point out is that clearly it's a war of attrition. At this point in the playoffs and at this point in the year, the winner of the championship and the best team standing will be whoever's healthiest. And Miami's falling apart. Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, their stars are starting to fall apart. Not through any fault of their own. It's just the matter of the game. The longer you play, the more exposed you are to getting hurt. And I think clearly that's what's going wrong with Miami. If they were healthy, maybe it'd be a closer series. And what's interesting too is you look at the past 4 games. Each game has been a blowout, essentially. Whoever wins the game, they're winning big. I think that changes now. I think starting with Game 5, you're going to see them start to settle in. I think we're going to get a little bit closer in terms of the final scores. Again, I picked Boston to win the series, but I think we're going to start seeing closer games. I don't think they're going to be as much blowouts. And hey, maybe I'll be wrong, but I'm fairly confident that we're going to start seeing some closer games. That moves me on to the Western Conference Finals. Today, the Golden State Warriors will be taking on the Dallas Mavericks for Game 4. Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals. In what could be a series-deciding Game 4. The Golden State Warriors currently lead 3-0. Dallas has not been able to make out with a win. And I just wanted to start off, this segment with Stephen Curry. I watch other experts, other analysis on the slander that they give Stephen Curry. There's one specific analyst that I won't mention, but he constantly refers to the 2016 finals when the Golden State Warriors, they were up 3-1 against the Cleveland Cavaliers, and they lost. They lost the lead, no doubt about it. Cleveland outplayed them. Cleveland out-hustled them. They earned that victory. A lot could be said about the suspension with Draymond Green and the health of certain players, but regardless, you play who's in front of you. And the Cleveland Cavaliers ultimately won that championship. But some people, they don't let it go. They do believe that he doesn't show up in the playoffs, yet I'd make the argument that there are other superstars who don't make it in the playoffs and don't receive as much ridicule. I do think that Stephen Curry has proven in this year's playoffs, he's for real. He's legit. Especially at this point in his career. He definitely has more time behind him than he does ahead of him. He's nearing the end of his best years, and he recognizes that, hey, with this group that we got, this may very well be the last best chance they have at a championship run. In these playoffs, he's averaging good numbers. He has 27 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and although the shooting isn't necessarily up to his standards, it's still fairly well. From the field, he's shooting 46%, from the three-point line, 38%, which is, low considering Stephen Curry standards. But 38% for anybody else would be decent. But because of who he is and because of the profile he has developed, it's low standards for him. So I do believe that the Curry slander definitely needs to ease up. He's 1 win away from a 6th final appearance in 8 years. Not many superstars can say they've been to 6 championships. Not many can say they've even been to a championship. So the fact that he's able to do it in 3 different iterations of the Golden State Warriors. There was the pre-KD, there was with KD, and now they're post-KD. I don't think you can make an argument. I think Stephen Curry will go down as one of the best point guards of all time. Where you have him ranked on your list, that's subjective. That depends on your view. I personally have him ranked number 2. I think the only guy that has a better resume, that has a better career, is Magic Johnson. 5 championships, 3 finals MVPs, 3 league MVPs, and defined a generation. I think Magic Johnson's the only guy that supersedes him in terms of point guards. If he wins a championship and a finals MVP, it definitely helps his chances and his argument for being the best point guard of all time. But, for the time being, I still believe Magic Johnson's number 1. What's also interesting is the emergence of Jordan Poole. Throughout the whole year, he's been improving, ever so slightly. But with the playoffs, and specifically in that series against Denver, he really elevated himself to another level. We knew about the Splash Brothers, but you get a guy like Jordan Poole there, and you now have a third viable option on offense. The teams that they're facing, the defenses, I should say, now have to account for not only Steph, Clay, and now Jordan Poole. Jordan Poole in these playoffs has been averaging a 50-40-90. 50% from the field, 40% from the 3, 90% from the free throw line. That's elite status. Very few people can say that they have had those averages. Granted, they take a look at that during the regular season. But for the playoffs, this is the highest level of basketball. To be averaging those numbers is impressive enough. He's averaging nearly 20 points a game, giving another set of points off the bench and really alleviating the offense in terms of what they have to produce, with points. His contributions to the team are unmatched. I definitely hope he's going to be a star in this league for years to come. It definitely appears that way. Speaking of stars emerging, Andrew Wiggins. Andrew Wiggins has impressed myself. I knew what he was capable of, but always understood on this team he was at best the 5th option. Again, as mentioned, you have the Splash Brothers, you have Jordan Poole, you even have Draymond Green ahead of Andrew Wiggins, but he's really elevated himself this past series against Dallas. You look at the game he just had in Game 3, 27 points, 11 rebounds, and a monster dunk on Luka Doncic, which initially they had called an offensive foul. Ridiculous. And I'll go back to it. I don't get tired of saying it, but this year's playoffs, I think the officiating has just been questionable. I don't understand what's a foul anymore. I don't understand what they want them to do on defense. And another thing, there was a call where Draymond Green had been called for a backcourt violation when clearly he and the ball did not cross, the halfway point of the court. They didn't make an argument with it. He knew it was a bogus call. Everybody knew it was a bogus call, except for the officials. And I think that's a shame. It's really annoying. It's become so inconvenient, especially when there's a foul call and they have to review it for a flagrant. And I understand that there are instances where clearly there's some level of physicality that, okay, we need to take a look at it to make sure it's a flagrant and that the proper protocols are taken. But again, I'll always say it takes away from the game. And these are the playoffs. These are the highest level of basketball. And for them to be doing that almost every game, and not just this series, but literally every game, whether it's the East, West, first round, conference finals, semifinals, regardless, I just think the officiating has been questionable. You have guys like Charles Barkley on Inside the NBA, flat out saying, it's the worst officiating he's ever seen. And that was in a certain game. I believe it was game 2, if I'm not mistaken. But it's getting out of hand. It's getting ridiculous. Going back to the game, though, you look at the contributions of a guy like Andrew Wiggins, who was coming from Minnesota. Minnesota was a perennial loser in the NBA, for a lack of a better term. These guys were always at the bottom. They had a streak of not making the playoffs, and Wiggins was the number one pick. He was the best player on that team until Karl Anthony Towns showed up. So when he came to the Warriors, you had a lot of people criticizing them, saying, why? Why are you getting a guy like Andrew Wiggins? What is he going to do? Some guys were saying, this is it. The end of the Warriors are not making the finals no more because of a guy like Andrew Wiggins. And I thought that was interesting. I thought, well, here's the thing. Golden State has a history of grabbing these players who I don't want to say are as valued as much as others, but you look at a guy like JaVale McGee. You look at a guy like Nick Young. These guys aren't considered, all-stars or elite athletes in the NBA. They're those role players. JaVale McGee was always on Shacking a Fool. He was known for making these mistakes, for making these blunders. Same thing with Nick Young. Yet the Golden State Warriors would add them to their roster, and they proved to be so instrumental to those championship runs back in 2017 and 2018. So taking a guy like Andrew Wiggins, ultra athletic, he's a number one pick in the draft. He has the capabilities. And to see the contributions coming to fruition in this round is really fulfilling, not only for Golden State, but for him, I'm sure. Because these guys, they hear things. They listen to the criticism. They listen to the feedback that fans or experts and analysts are providing. So for him to be able to, validate his place on this team, I know it must mean a lot to him. And it definitely means a lot to the team because, again, it's alleviating the pressure off of everybody else. If everyone is able to contribute and add their own, contributions with defense or offense, it makes everyone's jobs easier. That leads me to Dallas. Luka Doncic is a star. He's a bona fide star. In these playoffs, he's averaging 32, 9, and 6. That's the problem. He leads the team in all statistical categories excluding blocks. Points, rebounds, assists, steals, that's all him. Luka's the star. That's clear. At the beginning of this series, I was speaking to my brother Jared, and the one thing we agreed on was that Golden State defensively was going to have to force Luka Doncic to beat them. He would have to score 60, 70 points to beat this team. As long as they can limit the supporting cast, guys like Dinwiddie, guys like Brunson, Kleber, Bertans, as long as they could limit those guys, Luka's going to get his points because he's an offensive monster. The three-pointers, the step backs, getting to the free throw line, getting to the paint, he's a scorer. He's going to get his points regardless. So you have to make him beat you. Attack him in the paint. Attack him on defense. Tire him out. Again, he's putting up great numbers. He just had back-to-back 40-plus games in Game 2 and Game 3. So he's going to get his. But as long as they're able to limit the supporting cast, I feel like Golden State walks away with the wins. And they have. They have been walking away with the wins. They're one win away from the NBA Finals. Clearly, though, if the Mavs want any shot, and that's easier said than done because now they have to win 4 straight, and Golden State just needs to win 1. But they need more production from the supporting cast. You look at Game 3. They lose by 9 points. But again, they lived and they died by the three-point line. They took 45 threes, making 13. The Warriors had 11 threes, and they took 13 less shots to get there. For a team that isn't regarded as one of the better rebounding teams, they're winning the paint and they're winning the rebound battle every game. It's just that sense of urgency, and I feel like that's when the championship DNA really comes out. These guys have been here, they know what it takes, they understand where they're at and how far they are from the ultimate goal, and I feel like that's just the hidden gem that really makes this team what it is. They understand the assignment, they execute the game plan, and it's working. Curry, 31 points. Clay, 19 points. Wiggins, 27 points. You're getting productivity from each of their main starters. You look at Luka Doncic, 40 points and 11 rebounds. But a guy like Reggie Bullock, who took, multiple shots, he was 0 points out of 10 shots. He took 10 shots, 7 of those were three-pointers, did not make anything. Did not make anything. No record of him shooting the ball. He could have shot 50 times, but because he, made 0 of them, no contribution. If anything, you can count that as a turnover if you wanted to. Brunson had 20 points. He did what he needed to do. Dinwiddie, 26 points as well. That was it. Those 3 guys, Luka, Brunson, Dinwiddie, they've been consistent. They've been able to consistently bring something to the table for the Dallas Mavericks. But everyone else has been struggling. They're shooting the 3. And again, there's that saying, you live and die by the 3. When you make it, it's great. When you miss it, you begin to struggle. And then when the game starts to pull away from you, and you enter the third quarter, and you enter the fourth quarter, and you realize we're running out of time, they're going to start jacking up more 3s. It's just what happens. Golden State has seen this before. You look at a team like Houston. You look at a team like Portland they faced a few years ago, 2019, in the Western Conference Finals. These teams that live and die by the 3, which is interesting because I saw this point. The Golden State Warriors, it's arguable. They revolutionized the game of basketball in the sense of shooting the three-pointer. I'll reference Charles Barkley again. In 2015, he did not pick them to win the championship. He had picked the Cleveland Cavaliers because he did not believe that a jump shooting team could win a championship. You have to be able to dominate the paint and be physical. Well, Golden State, personified that finesse, that jump shooting style that he was referencing. And now the whole league shoots 3s, but Golden State doesn't shoot as many 3s as their competition. They recognize that, it's quality over quantity. I could take 50 3-pointers, but I could just be taking them just to take them versus taking 30 of them being quality looks and execute the game plan. As I mentioned, Golden State's winning the 3-pointers. They're winning the rebounds. It's been a physical series. You have guys who are throwing their bodies around for the rebounds, the fouls, as I mentioned before. It's been a very physical series. Foul trouble, that's another issue. Draymond Green got fouled out the other night. I think it's clear, though, Golden State's on a mission. They recognize that this is their window. They haven't been to the finals since 2019. They have a grand opportunity now in 2022 to widen the window, the championship window that everyone aspires to have. And I think that's clear. I think they have their mindset. They're motivated. Again, they're executing the plans. I really do believe that Golden State has a great shot at this title. If you ask me right now, I do think it's Golden State Boston. I think that'd be a great series. The best defense versus possibly the best offense left in the playoffs. You look at the legacies of both teams. Golden State, the team of the last decade. The Celtics, an all-time great team when you look at what they produced in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 2000s. They're constantly a figure that's always there. I look forward to tonight's game between the Golden State Warriors and Dallas Mavericks. Do they pull off the sweep? I don't know. I think that's interesting. Looking back in retrospect, I think Game 3 was the game that Dallas needed to win, in order to stay, in the running for this series. They didn't win. They could not finish. Does that strengthen their chances here in Game 4? Does it limit them? Are they going to give up? I doubt it. I've always said these closeout games in a series are the toughest to win, regardless of whoever you're facing, regardless of the round. Closeout games are the toughest because on one side, you have a team that's fighting for their lives. They're going to give you everything they got. They're not going to give in. They're going to fight until the very end, or at least they should. And, on the other side, there's a team who recognizes we're at the finish line. We're here. Let's just play 48 minutes of basketball and we move on. And it's a dangerous dichotomy to play with. There's one team who has nothing left to lose. They know that if they lose, they're out. But if they win, this now can shift the momentum. Versus a team like Golden State, who's up 3-0, they recognize, hey, we just need one win. And that's a dangerous game to play with, because that's exactly what happened in 2016 against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. They were up 3-1. They just needed one win. Turns out they got none. It'd be very interesting. Look for Luka Doncic to again have a big game. I anticipate that he's going to go for another 40. The key players to watch, though, are guys like Brunson, Dinwiddie, Kleber, all the supporting cast that I've mentioned before. I do think that they're going to have a better game. I don't think they're going to struggle like they did in Game 3. That was, again, you can attribute that to the defense. You can attribute that to bad shot taking. Regardless, it was an impressive loss by the Dallas Mavericks. And now that they're down 3 games, again, I do think they come out swinging. It's in Dallas. It's a home game for them, so the crowd's going to be hot. But again, my guess, Boston versus Golden State. We're going to go ahead and look forward to this Friday. Jared and I have another episode of Two Beans in a Pod. It's our 4th episode, and the main topic of that episode is going to be greatest champions in the NBA, whether it's an individual or the teams. We're going to be discussing some of the best players and best teams in the NBA history, some of the best to have won a championship, and really debate and talk about who we believe are some of the great names in the NBA. A lot of them are going to be familiar. A lot of them are going to be names you heard of. But that episode I think is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. We have a lot of exciting things planned for that podcast. Every week we're going to be highlighting a different topic, and for every episode we'll discuss a little bit of what will take place in the following week, just to give you something to look forward to. Again, as always, give us a like, share, subscribe. You know the deal, guys. As always, thank you for spending some time for us. We'll see you again, and we'll catch you later.